You'll see the reunion will make it all clear to everyone. She's been holding the purse strings for too long, acting like the hero for helping us out. Sophia, when we post those old messages about the loan you needed, we'll make sure it looks like she was the one pushing it to keep control. And for the business, those papers she signed without reading the fine print perfect leverage when she tries to act surprised about the new accounts. The family will finally understand why we've had to be careful around her. One well-placed comment at the table, and she'll be the one explaining herself for once. If she tries to fight it, we just bring up how much we've supported her over the years. She hates looking ungrateful in front of everyone. It works every time. Hi, my name is Emily Harper. I am 32 years old. The voice note had been meant for my younger sister, Sophia, alone. My cousin David Klein had hit the wrong button while trying to send the Memorial Day potluck assignments to the family group chat. The notification lit up my phone at the small accounting office where I worked as a bookkeeper. Evelyn Grant, my boss, looked over with a quiet frown as the pings kept coming. I stepped into the back parking lot and played it again. Mark's voice filled the car, steady and sure of himself. Every word landed exactly where he intended. He and Sophia had been building this for months. They were going to use the reunion at our countryside house outside town to turn years of my help into a public story where I was the controlling one. The loan I had given Sophia for her first apartment after she lost her job. The savings I had pulled to help Mark start his renovation business when the bank said no. They planned to post old messages, twist the timelines, and make sure the family saw me as the problem before anyone asked questions about the business accounts I had helped build. I called Mark on the way home. He didn't deny it. He laughed that short, flat laugh he used when he wanted me to feel small. Emily, you're blowing one private conversation out of proportion. Sophia was just venting. You know how she gets. Venting about posting screenshots in the family chat to shame me in front of everyone about using the loan papers and the business documents as leverage. That's not venting, Mark. That's a plan. He switched to the reasonable tone he used when he thought I was being dramatic. You're always so sensitive about money. This is exactly why we have to handle things carefully. You never let anyone else make a decision without turning it into a fight. I hung up before the conversation could slide into the familiar loop where I ended up apologizing for having questions. That afternoon, he showed up at the office unannounced. Evelyn raised an eyebrow, but stayed at her desk. Mark walked straight to the break room like he owned the building. He closed the door and tried the calm approach again. Look, the note was nothing. We were just talking through worst-case scenarios. You've been stressed about the reunion. I didn't want to add to it. I kept my voice even. You didn't want me to see the part where you called the money I gave you leverage, or the part where you said the family would side with you once they saw me as ungrateful. That's not stress relief, Mark. That's preparation. His expression shifted. The reasonable mask slipped for a second. You never used to question every little thing. Maybe if you trusted me more, we wouldn't have to have these conversations. I didn't raise my voice. I just said I trusted you enough to sign the papers you asked me to sign last month without the full statements. I'm starting to wonder what else I signed without the full picture. He left without answering. The door clicked shut behind him with the same soft final sound our front door made at home when he thought a conversation was finished. That evening, I pulled the old photo albums from the bookshelf. We were supposed to put together a small display for the guests coming to the house for Memorial Day. An old book my grandmother had given me years ago sat at the bottom of the stack. A folded piece of paper slipped from between the pages when I lifted it. Sophia's handwriting, dated 5 years ago, right after I had given her the money for the apartment deposit. The note was short. She had written that she and Mark had talked about how I thought I was better than them because I had the money to help, how they would make sure I didn't hold it over them forever, how they would even the score when the time was right. I sat on the living room floor with the note in my hands. The bitter edge that had been building all day sharpened into something clearer. They had never seen the help as help. They had seen it as debt, and they had been keeping score. The family group chat had gone quiet after David's apology and the initial flood of confused messages. Some relatives had asked what was going on. Others had stayed silent. I knew Mark and Sophia were probably already spinning their version in private texts. I didn't sleep well. The next morning, I made coffee and stared at the note again. Then I called Thomas Reed, the lawyer my Aunt Patricia had recommended years ago for a small property question. I told him I needed to understand what the documents I had signed actually meant for the business and the joint accounts. He said he could meet me the following week. The reunion was still 4 days away. Mark and Sophia thought they still had time to control the narrative. They didn't know about the note. They didn't know I'd already started asking questions in the right places. I put the note back between the pages of the old book and placed the book on the table where I could see it. The house was quiet. Outside, the Kentucky countryside moved through its usual slow spring rhythm. Inside, something had already shifted. I wasn't going to wait for them to spring their plan at the reunion table. I was going to make sure the truth had a seat at that table, too. The next morning, I drove to the office with the note from Sophia tucked inside my purse. I kept reaching for it at red lights, like touching it would make the words less real. Evelyn Grant noticed something was off the second I walked in. She didn't push. She just set a cup of coffee on my desk and said, "If you need to step out today, I've got coverage." I thanked her and kept my answers short. Some things you don't explain at work until you know exactly what you're dealing with. The family group chat had settled into an uneasy quiet overnight. David had posted another apology and then gone silent. A few cousins had asked what was going on. My Aunt Patricia wrote that whatever it was, it could wait until everyone was together at the house. Mark replied to the whole thread with a single line. Just a misunderstanding between siblings. We'll sort it out before Memorial Day. Looking forward to seeing everyone. Sophia liked the message. I didn't respond. I watched the little hearts and thumbs up appear under his words and felt the old familiar bitterness rise. They were already trying to close ranks and make it disappear. Sophia texted me privately around lunchtime. "Sophia, can we talk? Mark said you're upset about something," I said. I was just blowing off steam. "You know how he gets when the business is tight." I stared at the screen for a long minute before typing back. "Me," I heard the voice note Sophia. "The one where you two planned how to make me look bad in front of the whole family." That wasn't blowing off steam. She didn't answer for 20 minutes. When the reply came, it was softer, the tone she used when she wanted something. "Sophia, Emily, you've always been so sensitive about money. We were just talking through how to keep things fair. You helped us, and we're grateful. But sometimes it feels like you hold it over our heads, that's all." I didn't reply. I put the phone face down and went back to reconciling a client's books. The numbers stayed steady under my hands even when everything else felt like it was tilting. Mark came home that evening carrying takeout from the place I liked in town, the one we only went to on good days. He set the bags on the counter and gave me the smile he used when he wanted the room to feel normal again. "I thought we could eat and talk," he said. "No phones, just us." I didn't move to unpack the food. "Talk about what exactly?" "About how we present things at the reunion. The family's already confused. We don't need to make it worse by showing up looking like we're fighting." I leaned against the counter. "You mean we don't want them to know you and my sister were planning to publicly shame me so I'd stop asking questions about the business accounts?" His smile tightened at the edges. "You're framing it like some conspiracy. It was one conversation. You're turning it into a war. I'm turning it into what it is I said, and I'm not signing anything else until I understand every line. I already called Thomas Reed. I'm meeting him next week." Mark set the takeout containers down harder than necessary. The sound echoed in the quiet kitchen. "You went behind my back to a lawyer after everything we've built together. After everything I helped you build. I corrected. My voice stayed even. There's a difference. He ran a hand over his face, the gesture he used when he was trying to look patient. Emily, if you keep pushing this, the family is going to see you as the difficult one. Is that what you want to spend Memorial Day explaining yourself instead of enjoying the weekend? I met his eyes. I'd rather spend it telling the truth than pretending everything's fine so you and Sophia can control the story. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The quiet way he said the next words landed harder. You're making a mistake. People remember who causes scenes. They don't remember who started them. I didn't answer. I turned and walked upstairs. The food stayed on the counter untouched. Later that night, after he had gone to bed, I opened my laptop at the kitchen table. The house was dark except for the small lamp over the sink. I went through old emails, the ones from when Mark first started the renovation business. I found the thread where he had asked me to sign the initial operating agreement. The attachment was still there. I opened it and read every page slowly. One clause I had never paid much attention to gave him authority to make certain transfers without additional signatures after the first year. Another section referenced a family support addendum that I didn't remember signing. The date on that addendum was 2 weeks after I'd given Sophia the money for her apartment. I cross-checked the dates against the note I had found. The timeline lined up too cleanly to be coincidence. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark for a while. The quiet outside the windows felt heavier than usual. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked once and went silent. I thought about all the small moments over the last few years when Mark had asked me to sign something quickly because the bank needed it today or the accountant was waiting. I had trusted him. I had been the one who said yes because I thought we were on the same side. My phone buzzed on the table. A new message from Mark sent from the bedroom upstairs. Mark, we can still fix this before everyone gets here. Just talk to me. Don't make this bigger than it has to be. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened the old book again and flipped through the pages more carefully this time. Another small piece of paper was tucked deeper in near the back. Sophia's handwriting again, but older. This one was from right after Mark and I got married. She had written that Mark had told her the best way to handle me was to let me feel useful for a while. She likes playing the big sister, the note said. Let her. It keeps her from looking too close at what we're actually doing. I read it twice. The words didn't change. I folded both notes and put them in my purse with the printouts of the old emails. Then I changed the passwords on every account I could access from my phone, the joint checking the business portal, the email I used for anything financial. I did it sitting at the kitchen table in the dark while Mark slept upstairs. Each confirmation screen felt like a small door locking. When I finally went to bed, the house was still quiet, but it no longer felt like the same quiet I had known for years. It felt like the pause before something moved. The next day at work, Evelyn asked if I wanted to take Friday off before the long weekend. I told her I might need the morning. She didn't ask why. She just nodded and said the schedule was flexible. I appreciated that more than she probably knew. On the drive home, I kept thinking about the reunion. 4 days away now. Mark and Sophia still believed they could manage the narrative if they stayed calm and united. They didn't know I had the notes. They didn't know I had already started locking things down. They didn't know I had an appointment with Thomas Reed on Tuesday. I pulled into the driveway and sat in the car for a minute before going inside. The countryside around the house looked the same as it always had in late spring green fields, the line of trees at the back of the property, the gravel road leading out to the main road. Nothing dramatic, just ordinary. That was the part that felt strangest. The biggest shift in my life so far was happening in the middle of an ordinary week with Memorial Day cookout lists still sitting in the family group chat and potato salad recipes being argued over. I got out of the car and walked toward the house. Mark's truck was already in the garage. The light in the kitchen was on. I took a breath, squared my shoulders, and went inside. Whatever happened next, I wasn't walking in blind anymore. I walked into the kitchen and set my keys on the counter. Mark was already at the table with his laptop open, the same calm expression he wore when he wanted me to feel like I was the one creating the problem. "You're home late," he said without looking up. "I had some things to finish at the office." I didn't sit down. I also called Thomas Reed again. "He's going to look at the operating agreement and the addendum you had me sign." Mark closed the laptop slowly. "Emily, this is getting out of hand. You're treating me like I'm some stranger trying to steal from you. We're married. We built this together. We built it with my savings and my signature on papers I didn't read carefully enough," I said, "and now I'm reading them." He leaned back in the chair. The sarcastic edge crept into his voice. "You know, for someone who always complained about how hard it was to watch your sister struggle, you're awfully quick to turn on the people who actually needed you." The jab landed exactly where he aimed it. I felt the old reflex to explain myself rise and pushed it back down. "I helped Sophia because she asked. I helped you because I believed we were partners. Neither of those things gives you permission to rewrite the story so I look like the villain when I ask basic questions." He stood up. "The reunion is in 3 days. People are already talking in the chat. If you keep this up, the only thing anyone will remember is that you decided to blow up the family right before Memorial Day." I met his eyes. "Then maybe they should remember the truth instead of the version you and Sophia planned to feed them." He didn't answer. He just picked up his laptop and walked out of the room. The door to his office closed with a quiet click. I stayed in the kitchen and pulled the second note from my purse again. The one from right after we got married. Let her feel useful for a while. It keeps her from looking too close at what we're actually doing. Sophia's handwriting was neat and small. I wondered how many times she had written things like that and tucked them away where I wouldn't see. The next morning, Sophia called while I was getting ready for work. I almost let it go to voicemail, but I answered on the 4th ring. "Emily?" She said, her voice careful and warm in the way she used when she wanted something. "Can we please just talk like sisters for 5 minutes? Mark told me you're meeting with a lawyer. That's not you. You don't do things like that." "I do now," I said. She sighed, the sound she made when she thought I was being difficult. "Look, I know the voice note sounded bad out of context. We were both stressed. The business has been tight, and you've been asking a lot of questions lately. We just wanted to make sure the family understood that we've all been trying our best. That's all." "You wanted to make sure the family understood your version," I corrected. "The one where my help becomes control and your planning becomes venting." I have the notes, Sophia, both of them. The one from 5 years ago and the one from right after the wedding. I know this wasn't stress. It was a plan. There was a long pause. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted colder. "You really think holding on to old pieces of paper is going to help you? People are going to see you dragging up ancient history at a family reunion, and they're going to think you're the unstable one. Is that what you want?" I didn't raise my voice. "What I want is to stop pretending this is normal. You and Mark can explain the notes yourselves when everyone's together. Or you can tell the truth now. Either way, I'm done covering for it." She hung up without saying goodbye. That afternoon, Thomas Reed called me back. I stepped outside the office to take it. He was direct. "The operating agreement gives your husband significant latitude on transfers after the first year. The addendum you mentioned isn't in the version he filed with the state. If he had you sign something different privately, that document may not hold the same weight, but it could still create complications. We should meet in person before you sign anything else. And if he's been moving funds without clear documentation, we need to look at the statements." I thanked him and told him I would bring everything I had. When I went back inside, Evelyn was waiting near my desk. "Everything all right?" she asked quietly. "Not yet," I said, "but it will be." She nodded once and went back to her work. I appreciated that she didn't ask for details. Some support doesn't need explanations. The family group chat stayed mostly quiet for the rest of the day, but the undercurrent was there. A couple of cousins had posted neutral messages about what time they were arriving and what they were bringing. David had stayed offline since his apology. Patricia wrote that she was looking forward to seeing everyone and hoped whatever small misunderstanding is happening could be set aside for the weekend. Mark replied with a thumbs up and a comment about looking forward to the cookout. Sophia liked it. I didn't like or reply to anything. That evening, Mark tried one more time. He came into the kitchen while I was making dinner and leaned against the counter like we were having any normal conversation. I talked to Sophia, he said. She's upset. She thinks you're punishing her for venting. I told her you're just stressed about the reunion and the business questions. We can still fix this if you're willing to meet us halfway. I kept chopping vegetables. What does halfway look like to you? You drop the lawyer for now. We go into the reunion as a united front. After the weekend, we sit down with the accountant and go over everything together. No secrets, just like it used to be. I set the knife down and turned to face him. It never was like that, Mark. You and Sophia were already keeping score before we got married. I just didn't know it. I'm not dropping anything. And I'm not walking into that reunion pretending the voice note and the notes I found don't exist. His jaw tightened. You're really going to do this. You're going to turn a family weekend into a trial. I'm going to stop letting you and my sister decide what version of our life everyone else gets to see. He pushed off the counter. Fine, but don't be surprised when the family sees exactly who's causing the problems. Some things you can't take back once they're said in front of everyone. He left the room. I finished making dinner even though I wasn't hungry. I ate alone at the table while he stayed in his office with the door closed. Later that night, I went through the old book one more time. There was nothing else hidden between the pages, but I found an old photograph tucked near the back. It was from right after Mark and I got married. Sophia was in the picture, standing between us, smiling at the camera. On the back, someone had written the date and new beginnings. I stared at it for a long time. Then I put it back and closed the book. The next 2 days passed in a strange, suspended quiet. Mark and I spoke only when necessary. Sophia didn't text again. The group chat filled with arrival times, and who was bringing what the surface normal. Underneath it, I could feel the weight of what was coming. I spent Thursday evening printing the emails, the voice note transcript, and copies of the notes. I put everything in a folder and left it in my car. Thomas Reed had moved our meeting to Monday morning. I told him I might need advice sooner if things escalated at the house over the weekend. He said to call if I had to. Friday morning, I woke up early. The house was still dark. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with the folder on my lap. Outside, the countryside was starting to wake up. Birds in the trees, the gravel road empty. Everything looked ordinary. Mark came downstairs while I was still sitting there. He saw the folder but didn't ask about it. He poured his own coffee and stood at the counter with his back to me. People start arriving this afternoon, he said. Patricia and David are coming early to help set up. I know. He turned around. His voice was low. Last chance to handle this between us before it becomes everyone's business. I looked at him. It already is everyone's business. You and Sophia made sure of that when you recorded the plan and sent it where other people could see it. He didn't argue. He just nodded once, like he had expected the answer, and walked out to the garage. I stayed at the table until the coffee went cold. Then I picked up the folder, put it in my bag, and went upstairs to get ready. The reunion was starting in a few hours. The house would soon be full of family who had no idea what had been said in private chats and hidden notes over the years. I didn't know exactly how it would go, but I knew I wasn't walking into it empty-handed. My phone buzzed on the counter. A new message from David in the group chat. David. Hey everyone, just a heads up, I'm bringing an extra folding table. Also, Maybe we should all try to keep things light this weekend. Some of us have been talking, and it feels like there's tension. Let's not make it worse in front of the kids. I read it twice. Then I put the phone in my pocket and went to finish getting ready. The first cars would be here soon. The first cars pulled into the driveway that afternoon under a clear Kentucky sky. Patricia arrived with David Klein right behind her. They carried folding chairs and a cooler, talking easily about the drive and who else was coming. Mark came out of the garage to help, his voice steady and friendly as he greeted them. I stayed on the porch for a moment longer, the folder with the printed emails and notes tucked inside my bag. Sophia showed up 20 minutes later. She hugged Patricia and David like nothing was wrong, then gave me a quick, careful smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Emily, you look tired." "Long week, long few years," I said quietly. She looked away first. We spent the next couple of hours setting up tables under the big oak trees behind the house. The conversation stayed on safe topics, potato salad recipes, whose kids were coming, how the weather was holding. But every time Mark or Sophia spoke to me, there was an edge underneath the words, a quiet pressure to keep things light. I answered when spoken to and kept the folder close. By late afternoon, most of the family had arrived. Cousins I hadn't seen in a year, a few aunts, and two of Mark's brothers. The grill was going. Kids ran between the tables. The group chat had gone quiet because everyone was here now. The plan Mark and Sophia had made was supposed to happen tonight after dinner when everyone was relaxed and the stories started flowing. I could feel them watching me, waiting to see if I would play along. After we ate, people drifted into smaller groups. Mark and Sophia ended up near the main table with Patricia and David. I was helping clear plates when I heard Mark's voice carry just loud enough. "Emily's been under a lot of stress lately," he was saying. "Work's been busy, and she's been asking a lot of questions about the business. We've tried to be patient, but sometimes it feels like she forgets how much we've all supported each other over the years." Sophia nodded. "She helped me when I needed it, and we're grateful. But lately, it's like she holds it over everyone's head. We just want the family to understand we're all trying our best." A couple of cousins glanced my way. Patricia frowned slightly. David stayed quiet, watching. I set the plates down and walked over. The folder was in my hand. The yard went quieter than it should have been with so many people there. I think everyone should hear the full context. I said my voice even, since we're all here and talking about support and gratitude. Mark's expression tightened. "Emily, this isn't the time. It's exactly the time," I said. I opened the folder and pulled out the printed transcript of the voice note first. This is what was accidentally sent to the family chat. Mark and Sophia recorded it a few days ago while planning how to handle me at this reunion. I read the first few lines out loud, the ones about using the loan and the business papers as leverage, about making sure the family saw me as the problem so I would back down. When I finished, the silence was complete. Someone turned the music off without being asked. Sophia's face had gone pale. Mark tried to laugh it off, but it came out thin. "That was private. You're taking it completely out of context." I pulled out the second note, the one from right after our wedding. This was tucked in an old book I found while getting ready for the weekend. Sophia wrote it. It says Mark told her the best way to handle me was to let me feel useful for a while so I wouldn't look too closely at what they were actually doing. I read that line too. Patricia's mouth opened slightly. David looked at Sophia like he was seeing her for the first time. Mark's voice dropped, the calm mask cracking. "You're really going to do this here, drag up old notes and private conversations in front of everyone? This is exactly why we had to be careful with you." I looked at him. "Careful?" "Because I might notice the addendum you had me sign that wasn't filed with the state, or the transfers that started happening after the first year when the operating agreement gave you more control. I've already spoken to a lawyer. Thomas Reed is reviewing everything on Monday. I'm not signing anything else without understanding it first." Sophia tried one last push, her voice shaking with the effort to sound reasonable. Emily, you're making this into something it's not. We were just trying to protect the family from unnecessary drama. I held her gaze. You were trying to protect yourselves from being held accountable, and you were willing to use the family reunion to do it. Your own words make that clear. Patricia spoke first, her voice quiet but steady. I think we've heard enough for one night. Maybe some of us should head inside and give Emily and Mark some space. A few people moved toward the house. Others stayed talking in low voices. The easy reunion atmosphere was gone. The image of the united family had cracked open in front of everyone, and there was no putting it back together the way Mark and Sophia had wanted. Mark and Sophia left early the next morning without much explanation. Sophia sent one last text before they drove away. I hope you're happy with what you did. I didn't answer it. The rest of the weekend was quieter than anyone had planned. Some family members came to me privately and said they were sorry they hadn't seen what was happening sooner. David told me he felt sick about forwarding the voice note by accident, but glad the truth was out. Patricia stayed an extra day and helped me clean up. She didn't push for details, just said, "You did what you needed to do." That takes more courage than most people have. On Monday, I met with Thomas Reed. He confirmed what I had already started to understand. The documents gave Mark more control than I had realized, but my contributions were documented in the original agreements and the old emails. We started the process of separating the business finances and protecting what I had built. It would take time, but it was moving in the right direction. I didn't move out right away. Mark and I lived in the same house for a few more weeks while we sorted the legal steps. The conversations were short and practical. He didn't try the old manipulation tactics again. The notes and the voice note had taken that power away. When I finally told him I was moving into a smaller place in town and wanted the business interests divided cleanly, he didn't argue. He just nodded and said, "Do what you have to do." The deep inner peace didn't arrive all at once. It came in small, ordinary moments, making my own coffee in the morning without wondering what version of the story was being told behind my back, sitting on my new porch in the evenings and not feeling the need to explain myself to anyone, realizing that I no longer carried the weight of protecting their version of me. Choosing myself had cost something. The picture of the perfect family was gone, and some relationships would never go back to what they were. But the cost was worth it. I had stopped signing my name to things I didn't understand. I had stopped swallowing the story that my help made me the problem. I had boundaries now, and they were non-negotiable. The lesson wasn't complicated. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are the line you draw when someone has decided your support is something they are owed, and your questions are something to be punished. Choosing yourself is not selfish when the alternative is disappearing inside someone else's plan. It is simply refusing to keep paying a debt that was never yours to begin with. Thank you for staying with me through all of this. If any part of it felt familiar, I hope it reminded you that you don't have to keep signing the papers no one explained or smiling through the versions of your life other people wrote for you. Comment. Strength if you felt this.